We hear the term automation all the time when it comes to the data industry these days, but it's all working towards one specific goal: improving productivity, which is what we're going to look at today in the Data Radio Show. Hello there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Data Radio Show, where we're going to be looking at automation as a tool to help with productivity. There are some places in the world where productivity seems to be better than others, and there's a whole range of reasons for it, and automation is a tool that can help us all with that in different ways. In this week's episode, Sam is going to sit down and have a chat to Damian Walker from Coalesce to have a discussion around, well, a couple of really interesting parallels really. Damian started off in the automotive industry before moving over to data, at a time when the automotive industry was becoming much more automated in ways that we as consumers might not necessarily have realized. And it's the same now with the data industry. So before we get to that episode, make sure you hit that like button, share the video, or subscribe to the channel, and feel free to leave a comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. Now, let's jump over to Sam and Damian.
So, hello, listeners and viewers. Today I'm joined by Damian Walker. He's from Coalesce. So, hello to the audience, Damian.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, my name's I'm Damian Walker. I'm a sales director with Coalesce, and pleased to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. I guess as we were talking about putting this together, we were talking a little bit about your background and how careers have changed over the years and how you actually got into the field of data management, data warehousing, and data engineering, and your role there. Since I think you mentioned you came from the auto industry.
Yeah, that's right. So prior to the data world, I spent 12 years pretty much in the automotive industry. So between two brands really, Mercedes-Benz and Audi. So working always in a sales management sort of function, and in the later years, I had a business role. So yeah, lots of experience in a fast-moving business, managing complex sales teams, and I've taken some of that experience now and brought into the data world.
And what was it that sort of got you interested in the world of data management? And
well, it was, data's been an exciting space, and I think technology space on the whole, I think, is attractive to lots of people. And it was, that big marker in all of our timelines called COVID that really was the setting point. I'd always had that feeling like I've spent a long time in this industry now. Where's the change? Am I ready for something new challenges, slightly different industry to work in? And then when COVID came upon us, obviously many retail businesses, as the car market is, had to close down. And at the time, as you all know, it was quite a big scare for everybody. COVID, when it first hit, I think scared the pants off everyone, and we didn't know where the truth was. So all businesses closed down. We closed down all our retail businesses, and I didn't know where it was going in the future. And then I was lucky enough to have friends that I'd worked with that had started in the data industry previously. They reached out and said there was an opportunity, and I was really lucky that some people at a company called Warescape gave me the chance to sort of pivot and move industries at that point. So,
right. And was there a particular fascination that you've had with the use of data? And I imagine it played a fairly big part in your previous role.
Yeah. I was always on the receiving end of it. So as a sales manager, and then later as a head of business, we were making all of our business decisions off the basis of that data. So I was the consumer of data, the consumer of reports. It was really important that we knew where our market was, how our vehicle park looked. So all of that information that we need to be fed. And I think that, like with anything, you take it all for granted. When I'm consuming the data, I'm sure we do it all now with our phones and our apps, and we're not really conscious of how that data is being put together, how it's being prepared, and the work involved to get to that endpoint. And of course, then you're the demanding person at the other end of the business. You're saying, "Oh, we need this, we need that, we need all this information, and we need it tomorrow because the market's moving really quickly and we need to maintain a competitive edge. So I think what is really realized now is that there's so much preparation to make those good decisions, to get the really valuable business insight. It's not just there. It does have to be prepared, and there's teams and businesses of people that have to get us to that point. So a new appreciation, I think, is what I have today.
Right. And I guess as we were talking about a similar experience that we both had, my experience of riding in a Waymo, autonomous vehicle, and your own experience of riding in a Waymo. This was something that sort of piqued your interest and certainly my interest around what are some of the more complex aspects and what's under the hood, so to speak, when it comes to autonomous vehicle use of data and how decision making gets made around there. Do you want to share with listeners and viewers, some of your experience and thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting topic for me, I guess, because it combines sort of my two worlds of experience. My previous life in automotive, we had to make that pivot as quickly to embrace one, electrification, but also the automation that was coming into the industry. For years, I think we've always had autonomous driving or autonomous assistance systems, as we sort of more refer to them. Things like lane assist to keep you within lane tracking, adaptive braking, so cruise control that speeds up, slows down to zero, and so you always maintain a safe distance from the car in front. But to me, these were all different levels of automation, and the pinnacle was to get to the Waymo, the fully automated driving experience. But I didn't think we'd get there so quickly because of this, human in the loop. As we said, all these assistance systems relied on having a driver and a human who ultimately is still responsible for the vehicle, and they were there just to assist the experience and make things easier. And what I was really surprised with the Waymo is in San Francisco, that I used it a couple of times. I was blown away by the technology. I think the amount of data they've obviously had to plot in all of the roads, all of the markers, all of the crossings, every detail of the area in which they operate has to be plotted in. And then every eventuality has to be planned for. So the dog that steps out on the street, the camera picks up. How does the car react to that? There's so much data that they have to go through to plan for every scenario. I think that the technology, the use of data, how quickly it can operate, that blew my mind, and how good it actually was. And from a personal level, I think I was surprised at how comfortable I actually felt sitting in a car that I had no control of. And bear in mind, I don't generally want to ever be a passenger. I'm always wanting to be the driver in the car. I think there's a control freak sort of issue that I might have. But sat in the Waymo, I felt really safe and really comfortable to let it do its thing. And I think that's what surprised me the most. So they've obviously done a lot there to make you feel comfortable, because it's not a natural position to be in. I don't know how did you feel a similar way when you experienced it?
Yeah, I guess the example that I use is that it felt like getting on a roller coaster. Not from the sense of thrill or excitement of being on a roller coaster, but I didn't have any fear or anxiety, if you like, of losing control. It's like I had, I suppose, enough knowledge and I guess sense of trust that they wouldn't be able to go on the market and offer this service if it wasn't actually going to do a fit for purpose job. I actually was more excited than anything else. Like, it was super fun. Like, it was kind of the stuff of science fiction for me.
Yeah, I think I've had scarier experiences in Ubers. Um, definitely, because you're
I've
not in
definitely
control.
had scarier experiences being a passenger with someone else driving. So,
Yes, yeah, definitely. And I think that's still the reason why I didn't think it would happen so quickly. And I think still today why I don't think we'll see that fully autonomous, the image in my head is that we don't have passenger cars and we get into a pod and it takes us from A to B. I still don't think we'll have that on the mass market. And my doubt is purely because of those legal things, like you said. Um, who's responsible for it? Where are the legalities and road laws and liability? And I think that kind of the technology's there, but I think those barriers will stop it becoming sort of a mass market thing that we see, um, pods shooting around our streets. But who knows? We may get there.
well, they may turn into uh, uh, pod taxi drones before necessarily um, pod, well pods on in two dimensions in terms of being on the roads. I think there's one of the things that's particularly interesting to me around Waymo is that they only operate within a controlled environment. So it's only within certain boundaries. And from what I understand, their LiDAR sensing has mapped everything within those boundaries, or within the confines of where it operates. And there's kind of a little bit like the London taxi drivers. You see them on the scooters there, or in days gone by. To get your cab license in the UK, you had to memorize all of the streets and the lanes and all of that sort of thing, driving around on a moped, before you could graduate to get your taxi medallion or whatever the equivalent of it is in the UK. Um, I guess what I've picked up is that the lidar, um, and the massive amounts of geospatial data that they've collected enables them to have just the same level of innate knowledge of a particular area. So,
Yes, how do you scale that out? That's great in a confined area, but it's then scaling that out. And then when something changes, there's roadworks or there's a deviation. It's the update again. It's infrastructure, no different to electrification. When everyone wants to go electric, and we know the technology's there, but how do you implement the infrastructure of charging that suddenly makes it viable for everyone to lose a combustion engine? Um, and that's similar to what you're saying with autonomy. There needs to be the infrastructure to go out and map every possible area. So yeah, I think we'll see it in confined areas where they've been able to map it. I know that Heathrow Airport have sort of pods that sort of shuttle you to and from parking to terminals. Again, confined areas, there's less variables to deal with. So situations like that, I think we'll see it implemented quite quickly and successfully.
yeah. I guess turning to Coalesce, can you give listeners and viewers an overview of who are Coalesce, where do they play in the market, what's your value proposition or elevator pitch, so to speak?
Yeah, I think as an overview, as we kind of touched on throughout this chat, we've been talking about automation, and I'm still in the business of automation. I guess it just takes on a very different form now. But essentially, I'm still hell bent on making the lives or the working lives of data professionals more fulfilling. And Coalesce does that as a developer platform. That's the best way to think of it. We're a developer platform that is uniquely designed to accelerate the delivery of data projects. Um, and we do that because there's sort of common problems, I guess. A couple of them are people build out their data warehouse and they're poorly built and they're difficult to maintain. and this is a huge drain on team resources. It becomes a pinch point in the data flow, and ultimately it hinders their project delivery times, and then in that hinders innovation. And that's why we have a user interface that generates and automates a lot of that sort of pipeline development work. So that's what we're about. We want to help customers build data platforms, and we don't want them to be doing that in a manual, rigid, error-prone way, through traditional methods like hand coding, legacy GUI tools. These are just too limited and they're not efficient. So that's where Coalesce comes in. We're here to act as a force multiplier for them. Actually, very similar to, we talk about Coalesce doing that with, say, hand coding, for example, hand coding being the manual part and Coalesce being the automation. That's a similar analogy to how we've been talking about cars and Waymos. And it'll be the same thing as we go into the world of things like AI and ML in the future. We'll see all of that same sort of contrast between how people operate with automation and then AI.
And so putting yourself in the shoes of a data manager or a data engineer or a data architect, what are the sorts of problems that Coalesce and your platform or automation platform allow customers to solve? Like, what are the top things that you enable them to do faster, better, cheaper?
Yeah, I think we touched on a few there about sort of poorly built systems, but it's really about productivity. I think at the core of it, we look at data engineering teams' rate of productivity. So using the SQL hand coding, we're going to have people build on SQL. Yes, you can get the job done by doing that. You argue, is that the best way? You can get from point A to point B in two different vehicles. I can get there by bike, or I can get there by Tesla, for example, as a modern day vehicle. You're going to get to the same place, but they're going to be very different experiences. And one's going to get there a hell of a lot quicker. It's not going to have any errors. And that's the same thing that we do with Coalesce. We're saying let's get from point A to point B as quickly as possible, so that if it's not right, you don't have to labor on that point. You can iterate, you can throw it away, you can go again. So build quickly, fail fast. But also, why are we insistent on doing repetitive tasks over and over again when these can be put into an automation tool like Coalesce, where we can generate code, push that down to the platform, create standardization so we don't have errors and inconsistencies. And that's really about, and then having that framework, having that brought out to other people in the business. So, bringing other hands that maybe they're semi-skilled, maybe they're not proficient as the core data engineering team, but why should then the data engineering team be the bottleneck? Let's open it out. So this is a real sort of data mesh kind of approach. It's on the ethos of self-serve, and that's what we want. We want more hands on the data. Ultimately, that opens it up so that businesses can make faster decisions, faster turnaround times, and get to these innovative spaces where they want to then, or can actually then explore the AI use cases, for example.
Right. And so on that note, there are a variety of methodologies / approaches that enterprises are using and grappling with. I understand that one of the methodologies and use cases that you support is data vault engineering, but are there others? Do you want to talk a little bit about what are some of the unique aspects of Coalesce and your approach to not only the stack of database infrastructure, if you like, as well as the different approaches and methodologies?
Yeah, and I think it's a good point. And when we're speaking to customers, we're sort of focused on there's sort of three key aspects. We talk about speed, so the speed in which you can develop data pipelines. We talk about scale, so how large that can grow across an enterprise, how many people can be involved, and the consistency that you need to be able to scale your data projects. But the third thing is about sort of extensibility, and I think that's what you're touching on there, Samuel. Is that yes, you can use Coalesce, for example, to build out a dimensional model and all of your data marts, but you can use it to build out a data vault. That's the extensibility that we have, that we're not set in one way. I think when we think about graphical user interface sort of tools of the past, they were always really efficient. They offered great consistency, standardization, automation, all of the great things, but oftentimes they were a bit too black box. So you were locked into a way of doing things. It was called a set procedure. We really don't want that. Our ethos is you have to have the flexibility that you have with sort of coding. A lot of people went away from those GUIs and started coding because they had to find a way to integrate with their cloud technologies. So they started hacking the tool or writing SQL. So it's really important that Coalesce is flexible enough in a templated approach so that you can change the way. If I'm working for Joe Blogs Limited, I don't want to be producing my data pipelines and my data transformations in a Coalesce way. I need to do it in a Joe Blogs Limited way. So you have to be open enough to be able to amend the templates and then have your own standards be propagated throughout the business. So, yes, there's different methodologies, but importantly, whatever that method is, you can do that within tools like Coalesce.
Right. And from the point of view of what's on the cutting edge or what's new in terms of the Coalesce platform, what are you guys anticipating coming out in the near term?
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that we'll see quite quickly within our product development, we're really focusing on data mesh and data quality. So these would be two kind of product pillars that we're going to explore quite heavily in the next year, because we know how important they are to customers. So we do a really great job of it now, but I think there's more that can be done and we can bring into our product. I think on the sort of the edge cases, everyone's talking about AI, and so it's probably good to spend a bit of time just talking on that. AI, I guess, if we talk about it generically, we're going to see AI use cases coming into our lives and into our work. Will there be an AI super intelligence that suddenly makes software developers obsolete as a whole? I don't think so. If that happens, then we're in Terminator with Skynet, for anyone that is old enough to have seen that. And it's kind of like worrying about an asteroid hitting the Earth. We have bigger problems, and I think what we'll see is that we've got this kind of AI hype curve, as we're growing now, but as it plateaus out, we'll see the real use cases for AI appearing everywhere, and they'll be more like, again, force multipliers for existing expertise. And the ones that succeed will be people that can embrace AI and use it as an assistant system to what they're already doing. And that's how we're sort of thinking about the AI capabilities within Coalesce as well. I'm sure, AI fundamentally it's hungry for context and metadata for it to work. And that's what Coalesce does. That's our business. We're about, providing metadata, solid data foundations. Once you've got that solid data foundations, then you can open up AI as an assistant system. But if we think about most data engineers, they're probably all feeding their SQL schemas into ChatGPT or something like that and getting it to generate queries and tables. Well, Coalesce, we already have the SQL schemas. So how do we make that a one-click process for our users, obviously, and making sure they respect sort of privacy and security of that metadata. So I think that's where we'll go. And I think that's where most businesses will see that it will be the tools that can integrate with AI and have it as an assistant and a force multiplier.
Right. Yeah, I suppose one of the things that is on, well, it's kind of on the horizon, but at the same time, it's more than on the horizon, which is the EU AI Act, as it gradually comes into force. So there's a whole compliance layer, if you like, that is becoming more and more important around the use of AI over the course of the next year or so. Any pointers or any points of discussion there from Coalesce's standpoint?
No, I don't think so. Not in regards to EU AI. I think it's a more general discussion around, and we know there's the moral implications of AI. How do we develop it responsibly? I think is the key, and not develop it just on a commercial basis. I think that's really important for something. Yeah, and we know that discussion happens often with some of these big AI companies. I think we have to consider where we're going and what we want the future to look like, which is, that you use the term super intelligence. We've got to be conscious of that. I think we've seen enough to be nervous and to make sure we've got fair warning. And I think that making sure that we use it like the autonomous cars and go, okay, we don't need to have everyone running around, flying around the sky. But we do need assistance systems. I think that is where the real use case is. I feel more maybe that's just my personal opinion. I feel more comfortable having AI assist us and that we maintain a human element. That human in the loop sort of discussion, I think, is really important. And I think it's important from a moral basis so it doesn't get away from us. But I think it's important for us all to feel that, we've still got purpose. So, one of the challenges that we come up against sometimes is we've got businesses that are maybe, hand coding, the hand cranking SQL throughout their business because that's the way they've done it. Now, there is a better way. You can use tooling to accelerate that process and, like Coalesce and, we'll write the code for you. What is the resistance to doing that? Sometimes it's people which want to hold on to the job security. It's like, I have value because I manually produce something. And it's like, well, you can have value by doing something else. There's bigger, higher value tasks that we want the human, to do, and let's automate those simple ones. That's the same with AI. It's where are the tasks? Where do they change? Our roles have to change slightly, that we embrace AI to go, okay, these are an assistance. These are the things that they can do really well. And let's use it as a tool for that. But let's make sure that human element is fundamental in that whole sort of setup.
Right. Okay. I think that those are all of the things that I had on my to-do list to talk to you about. So thanks so much for taking the time today. And of course, if you want to find out more about Coalesce, there's actually a classroom in the Data Innovators community that we'll have a link to in the notes below. But all that remains is to say thanks, Damian, and pleased to have you here.
Thanks for having me. It was great to be invited, and appreciate your time.
Hey, I want to thank Damian and Sam for setting this week's episode up. Absolutely fascinating to sit down and listen to, especially those parallels around the automotive industry and what we're seeing now in the data industry. Don't forget, if you haven't done so already, to hit that like button or to share the video, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment down below. Until next time, make sure you live long and prosper. May the force be with you, and we'll catch you all later.